We are going to play Lessons in Lyrics. I have gone into the Andrew McMahon vault, if you will.
I'm terrified by the image of what you have coming next here. Yeah.
These are 10 songs that I've picked. I want to know the feeling that you wanted to convey when you wrote these lyrics. We're going to start with Fire Escape.
Sure.
All right. There's a million city lights, but you're number one.
The goal with the lyric was to sort of say, okay, well, you have these nights, you have this life, and I'm blessed to have this crazy life with so many characters in it, but it's sort of where home is and what brings me back home. That's what really counts. I don't just like, on the end of one of these nights, I don't just go and pass out in a pillow and wake up a day later because it was crazy. It's like I'm still awake to see my daughter and my wife, you know, and I think there was that sense of like, it's love that makes that energy actually real.
We are going way back.
Uh-oh.
Ruthless.
Oh yeah. It's a breakup song with somebody that I worked with. Yeah, it wasn't meant to be romantic, but it was sort of characterized that way. You know, not to reference the lyric again, but it had gotten to be this ruthless event. What I was trying to communicate was like, I can still get my teeth out if I'm forced to, which I did.
Have you reconciled with that person?
I think they think we did.
Restless Dream.
I wonder how you've been and where you are. A letter to the one who slipped away.
A letter for the things that never start. I love that one.
It's this idea of like, you know, there are people that you've dated or people that you've had in your life that, you know, even as those things have resolved themselves and everybody moves on, you know, you can have these moments where you're like, oh my gosh, remember, you know, where like the pains of an old love or whatever. It's actually one of my favorite songs, if not my favorite song on People and Things. I absolutely love that track.
Halls. And it did, and I was right, so now you're gone.
That song was like very specifically about this moment where on the first Jack's Mannequin tour where I was
in Arizona.
Yeah, it was this sort of pivotal moment where my wife and I, she was my girlfriend well, she wasn't my girlfriend, we were broken up, but I sort of cast the olive branch to like try and win her back. That's how what that whole song is really about, is this like crazy night in Tucson where I called her, I was like, can I fly home and take you to like Disneyland? And it was sort of the beginning of this reconciliation process. And it was that Jack's Mannequin era where I sort of like shaved my head and freaked out and broke up with something corporate and broke up with my girlfriend. And that sort of is a reference of the aftermath and sort of trying to pick up some of the pieces.
Hurricane. We talked about this one earlier.
But the world moves faster than I knew, not fast enough, but to not creep up on you.
And the space we put between.
There's like three words in that song that I wrote, but that's Josh's song through and through. And I imagine he was talking about one of his girlfriends from high school. I remember him showing up to band practice with that song, and like Josh and I always had this like healthy and sometimes not healthy give and take, you know, over you know, who wrote what and you know, and how, you know, and who was the leader of the band and all these kinds of things. And I remember hearing the song and being like, it's so good, I hate you.
All right, Swim.
No shame in drifting, feel the tide shifting.
And Wait for the Spark.
Yeah. That's a big one for me. A lot of people think that song's about when I was sick, you know.
I thought it was.
Yeah, and it to some extent it is, but it was really, I mean, I wrote that probably 2-3 years after I was diagnosed. I was going through a pretty fair bit of post-traumatic stress from having been sick and all of the rebellion that goes along with being a young cancer survivor. I was depressed. It was just a lot, you know. And I remember feeling, you know, like in a particularly sort of desperate state and having sort of drunkenly written out some notes on a paper one night and sort of waking up in the morning and seeing the word swim, you know, somewhere on a bedside table or whatever, and going like, okay, this is the thing that's going to lift me out of it. You have all this survivor's guilt. You have all these things that nobody tells you about, that you survive these things, and then you were like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Everything's changed. I'm not as fearless as I was. I'm not as confident as I was, but I still am a young person who has to float this big operation. And that song, I think, was the moment where I was like, you're going to do this. You're going to own it.
Constantine.
And if this is what it takes, I'll lie in my mistakes.
And live with what I did to you and all the hell I put you through. Which sometimes you change that lyric when you sing it live.
Yeah, revisionist history, I suppose. That was just the quintessential, like, the thing that every really young person does, and when they're like kind of think they're madly in love with somebody, but it's this sort of this romantic ideal, you know, and so there's breakups and fights and, you know, and people in between. And it was just a very, you know, hormone-filled age of, you know, trying to win somebody and then intentionally losing them and trying again until it all blew up.
Do you ever talk to the Constantine
No.
in your life?
No. I mean, not out of any, like, you know,
Right.
there's no you know, ill will or anything, but yeah, we just we don't really have like mutual friends or anything.
Watch the sky. There's things that aren't worth giving up, I know, but I won't let this get me. I will fight.
I mean, I had been partying a lot more than I would. I go in waves, you know, but this was sort of in a particularly heavy period and had a really, really rough trip. and if I can say so, and sort of woke up in the morning and said, like, okay, it's time to get yourself in check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of musicians, I feel like, party and drink so much. What is that about?
I mean, I think there's a Peter Pan kind of complex that goes along with all of this stuff, you know, like we're fortunate to do what we do, and what we do is we throw a party every night. I mean, that's, if you really look at it, it's like we host a party every night. There's just an element of, you know, of sort of joy, you know, joyful celebration every night of, you know, of a tour, and that extends into so many other areas of the life of what you do as a musician. And it's not an excuse, but it's just, these are not like Motley Crue style,
Right.
like, you know,
Not like breaking TVs.
yeah, I mean, we've done that too, but not a lot, you know, but it's an easy thing to sort of slip into.
Dark blue. We were boxing the stars, we were singing from Mars, and then the water reached the west coast and took the power lines, and it was me and you.
I mean, that'll forever be one of my favorite songs I wrote. And I was broken up with the love of my life, and I knew that we were supposed to be together. I had this dream where we were in this tidal wave and just saw this massive thing coming at me, and ended up, you know, in the midst of it all with I know this sounds horribly
It
horribly
doesn't.
corny,
It's
you know what I
it's
mean?
so
But,
interesting, though.
I wrote and rewrote the lyrics to sort of manifest my will, which was to sort of piece it all back together, even in the midst of this chaos and storm. But it happened in this weird way in a hospital room, and in the middle of a real sort of storm, you know, and I think that's the crazy thing about that record for me.
This is the last one, Kavanaugh Park. And there was never any place for someone like me to be totally happy.
It's so depressing, but
It's
it wasn't
so sad.
But it's not. I mean, I think of that song. I think I was 15 years old when I wrote that song, you know, and I used that park as sort of a touchstone for like these moments, these pivotal moments of growing up and being with your friends and getting in trouble, and, you know, like your family members impart these life lessons. I think there's always something in me that's always felt a little bit alien to the culture and the world around me.
Do you feel like you found a place where you can feel totally happy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm, you know, I'm really lucky. The world I have around me, that I've both built positive relationships and ones that are symbiotic and that feed each other. There aren't these one-way sort of relationships, and I think that's something you learn as you get older, and I feel incredibly fortunate that that's where I've landed.